Yeah, I get it. I like second guessing myself. I've got it right every time, but I'm like, oh. Hey, we're back. We're doing another quick fire Cairncast. We're here in Mayvn. And before we were saying thank you very much to Common and Mayvn, as well as Minor Figures. And actually, we're joined by Jace here, who is the master of all that you see in front of you, except this, but everything else. Thanks for taking time.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, it's two masters of the game here in Edinburgh. No, joking. But how long have
Two students.
how long have you been doing coffee in Edinburgh? Because you moved up from London.
Yeah, I moved up from London. Common's been going for just over 5 years now,
Nice.
and probably kind of got into coffee through like events. So maybe 7 or 8 years in coffee.
nice.
Yeah.
Was there a guy who moved up with you that did Stir Coffee in Brixton, or is that?
No, he's a friend of ours. He just came up.
I remember
help.
meeing him at one of your events
Yeah.
and been like,
Yeah, his name's Sam.
Yeah.
No, he's a friend that's come to help over the years. He runs a company called Brewed Online now, down in London.
Yeah.
Nice. But yeah,
quite random.
yeah.
We caveat. So yeah, we're going to ask a couple of quick questions, I suppose. Don't have to be quick. Yeah, I'm interested. We were chatting to someone before about, cafe environments pre-pandemic and where we are now, where things seem to be kind of going back to the way they were. But I wonder if you've noticed any differences in, customer behavior or like things that you think work better now, or if anything has changed at all.
So I can't really talk too much on pre-pandemic because I was just a customer pre-pandemic. So from like an operational perspective, we only opened our first cafe during the pandemic.
Did you?
Yeah, so I've never ran a cafe beforehand. Obviously, spent a lot of time in them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I guess that to me, I think it really comes down to your regulars and how you look after them and how you treat them and ensure they keep coming back. But having that diversity within your regulars, from your coffee enthusiasts to your local business people to your tourists, we're in one of the most popular tourist cities in the world.
Yeah.
So, that balance is super important. Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Do you think, I guess, for the longest time, 7 or 8 years ago in Edinburgh, we didn't, this might be the wrong thing to say, but it's like we didn't feel like we had to work as hard as we maybe do now to retain regulars, and it kind of felt like pre-pandemic with all the offices about, there was almost like a lot more people milling around.
I mean, that's definitely a challenge, like knowing that there's not as many people in the city on a regular basis. So I guess you kind of do have to work extra hard for that. Obviously, this cafe is a bit unique here because we're joined with the hotel. So like 40% of our trade is probably from the hotel guests.
Okay, well.
But it's still good to know that like over half our trade comes from people that aren't staying at the hotel.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So, and obviously we have that kind of, we run late into the evening and we serve some alcohol and stuff. So we do kind of do a little bit of everything, but over the next 12 months, we're going to really try focus a little bit more and just keep that cafe vibe going later into the night rather than try and switch to a bar.
Nice.
Yeah.
There's might seem like a bit of a personal one, by a caveat here, but having like really long hours, you find that hard to staff.
Yeah.
Because we've tried to do a couple times, and it's having that kind of split shift almost suddenly. You need a lot of people. It's like,
so actually, this time round, we've actually partnered with a local events business. So Mayvn's run by a company called Splendid, who's a staffing agency.
Oh, okay.
And then us, Commons. So like we kind of, our involvement's from an operational perspective, and then the staffing is So it was a real challenge for us during the pandemic, and it was actually probably one of the reasons I closed it in the first place. We grew quite fast, and I personally probably felt a little bit out of my depth. I needed to step back a bit to kind of reassess what was going on. The opportunity came to reopen Mayvn in a partnership, and I think, spreading the load of stress, as is super important. And
I feel like, that's probably one of the biggest changes then for you guys pre and post, or during pandemic or post-pandemic, and it's been one that we've encountered as well. It's like you had that time to think, how are we gonna succeed at this game, and like you know, try and make some sacrifices to try and reach those goals. Like we really almost completely changed our approach, and still question that quite strongly. Whilst I think pre-pandemic we just were kind of trucking along. I think having that break where it's like, okay, actually it was almost like a hard reset to rethink things. Definitely was quite an interesting opportunity, I suppose, to have another crack at the whip. In terms of the roastery, how like, obviously I would assume you had a fair spike of e-commerce around COVID time, did you?
Yeah, we had I think just like most roasteries, we had a really a bit of a spike in online sales and retail, and it kind of carried us through.
Yeah.
I guess during, coming out, not that first year, but coming out of the pandemic, maybe became quite too focused on the cafes and kind of lost sight of the roasteries operations a little bit.
Yeah.
And Common kind of plateaued for a little while, which was, I think it's just a circumstance thing, like, and how much energy I had to put into the business. But yeah, it's been a good start to the year, and we're slowly growing out of it, which is good. And we pulled on some more wholesale customers and a couple of office blocks, and reopening Mayvn's definitely helped. And so yeah, the roastery's moving in the right direction, and I'm really glad that persevered with it, like, because there was a point in time where I was just like, that's enough, like, I don't know how I'm gonna get out of the situation, but it's starting to feel more positive for sure. Definitely, I wouldn't say we're out of the woods, but we're recovering. So yeah,
glad to hear.
Yeah, and I'm enjoying it again. I think that's the main thing. You got to enjoy it, right?
100%.
Because there's definitely times when you don't.
I was talking earlier about. Look, I don't know if you listen to the Cat and Cloud podcast, but in California, Chris Baca, who is a really interesting guy. He's in coffee and he talks about running a business a lot. And he was saying, like, often he thinks, like, do I actually enjoy running a business, or do I feel like I had enough value here? Or should I do? And it is quite funny. I think people look at a business owner. Everyone thinks everyone's absolutely smashing it, and there are many times I'm like, do I actually really enjoy this? You put yourself through a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And for the most part, it's pretty rewarding, but sometimes it's not.
I think the biggest piece of advice I got when I first started, which I ignored for the first 4 years, was to, like, look after myself and look after my own health. And like, I think I did what most people do when they first start out. They kind of like, yeah, but this needs to be done now, and this needs to be done now. And what ends up happening is you don't execute anything that well, because you're not, like, personally, I wasn't operating at a not 100%, but I wasn't operating at a level that's, like, sustainable. So I kind of have tried to protect my own personal time, and so I can do things outside of work. And that's, I think, over the last 12 months is what personally has made work more enjoyable. But I think it's just something everyone goes through, right? Like, it's your little dream at the start, and you want it to succeed, so you throw 100% of your life into it, and it doesn't. Yeah,
I completely agree. I think there's a fable of sorts where it's like, to succeed in business, you cannot stop. Like, you have to, be so committed to it. But actually, like you say, if you're always on that edge of burnout, it's like you're not really, like, working cleverly. You're working. You're just aimlessly working. It's you're not coming at it in a tactful view, I suppose. Yeah, super interesting. I guess just to finish off, because I'm sure you'll be running off to do something. Looking ahead now, like, have you got any kind of guesses or predictions of how do you think the cafe environment might change? How do you think a cafe might succeed over the next 5 years?
Well, I guess I'm really interested to see, obviously, from an economic point of view, there are some challenging times ahead still, and I if you look into the reports, it's probably going to be with us for a couple of years. So, but in saying that, some of the industry reports is that coffee tends to do quite well through, like, whether it's a recession or an economic downturn, as that bit of luxury that people continue to treat themselves. I don't think I've got enough experience to like kind of forecast what might happen, but I'm interested to see if that holds true, because I think in the past there has, which is quite an exciting place to be in. So I guess I'm a little bit optimistic, but I think hopefully, just keep doing good things and hopefully attract good people and just come out the other side. I think coffee will always remain as a staple in people's lifestyles. How that relates to cafes is going to be challenging, because the prices definitely keep going up, and I don't know what the cap is like.
I know. I feel like I need to break through that £4 barrier. It's going to be hard, but
I think also as time goes on and people realize that they're not just actually paying for a cup of coffee, they're paying for like everything, like whether it's the service or the environment they're sitting in, or.
But if you said to someone, would you rather pay £3 to drink a cup of coffee in somewhere that's horrendous, or £4 to come somewhere like this and drink in an incredible environment? When you pitch it that way, they'd be like, yeah, I'll pay the extra £1. But they don't view it that way, do they? They don't generally tend to understand that part of your investment in that cup of coffee pays for like the upgrading of like, keeping things looking good and paying good staff to speak to you and all those kind of things. It's one of those hidden overheads that.
I guess it's just a polite way of trying to communicate. They're like, when people go to a bar, they're probably going to have 2 pints or a couple of glasses of wine, and all of a sudden, if there's 2 of you at a table, that's a minimum of £30 spend.
Yeah.
Now, there's the same amount of wait staff, there's the same amount of overheads going into it. If the same 2 people go to a cafe and have 2 coffees each, the spend is half. So, and it's probably the same amount of time and the same amount of overheads. So, like, politely explaining that, and the more people that become aware of it, because at the end of the day, like, I'm a big believer in like the people that work in the industry should get paid a livable wage to work in it, and so part of that is just, unfortunately prices have to go up, don't they?
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think
£8 flat away. You heard it here first.
Slowly but surely.
Final question, and then you can get off. Any tips for surviving the fringe in hospitality? I mean, like,
just enjoy it. I reckon.
Ice shower, or what's?
No, enjoy it. I mean, I know it's pretty tough. I guess that's why we're doing tonight downstairs. It's just trying to like come together, have a laugh, and try and enjoy it, and
laugh in the face of adversity.
Just laugh off any grumpy customers that you have to put up with. But hopefully, most people's in good moods, and just. But
you always know it's going to end. I mean, we know it's going to end in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So.
Enjoy.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, nice.
Awesome.
Well, thanks so much,
Cool.
man.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Cheers, man.
That was great.